What's going on, dudes and dudettes? I am the Mystical Green Beanie, and welcome to another episode of Hitting the Books, the show where I take a comic that I've read this week and I review it. And today I am reviewing Captain Marvel issue number 1. And before I get started, I really want to preface this review by admitting that I'm not the biggest Carol Danvers fan. The only real exposure to the character that I've had was whenever she showed up in someone else's book. So this comic is pretty much the first time I'm really getting into Carol Danvers. That did not sound anything like I intended for it to sound. But anyways, let's start this review. Starting off with the basic story premise, Carol Danvers has been appointed the new head of Alpha Flight, which is Earth's first line of defense, and this first issue chronicles her first day on the job. And as most first days on the job, she has her ups and her downs, and she makes friends and she makes enemies. And this job isn't all that she was expecting it to be, but soon things get a little more interesting, but not interesting in the way that she was expecting. And in the end of the issue, we get the setup for what I feel could potentially be a really interesting story arc moving forward. So that was the story. Now let's talk about the art, which is really cool in my opinion. The pencils were done by Chris Anka, and they're pretty good for the most part. The environments are very detailed and are visually stunning. But to me, the real all-star here is Matthew Wilson. The colors are spectacular, and it really elevates Anka's pencils. Also, the cover, which was also done by Chris Anka, is gorgeous. And I'm not sure if there's a poster of that yet, but if there is, I really want it. And finally, delving into the things that stood out to me, whether they be good or offensively bad. Starting off with the good, as always, I really love the way that Carol is drawn. I made this point in my Brian Azzarello Wonder Woman review, and I'm going to bring it up here as well because I feel like it's a really important matter to bring up. A lot of women in comics are hypersexualized, and while yes, ass and titties are a godsend, sometimes the artist can get a little carried away, and instead of drawing a character, they end up drawing a caricature, and here, Carol is drawn to be very sexy, but she's not sexualized, and in fact, she's drawn in a way that exudes a powerful presence. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure I used those last few words correctly, so I'm gonna move on now. Also, as I mentioned before, this was my introduction to Carol Danvers, and I feel like this book does a damn fine job of introducing me to her. I'm admittedly more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, but I've always wanted to know why people had such an affinity for Carol, and I've always been told that she's basically Marvel's Wonder Woman, and I gotta say, based off this, I don't get that vibe at all, and I really love that. To me, Carol feels a lot like, what if Steve Rogers was born in the 80s, but was also a girl? And there's an old soul-like earnestness in the way that she carries herself, but she still has a bit of that Generation X attitude, flair, and snark. And aside from J. Michael Straczynski's Superman Earth 1, I can't say that I've seen that in a lot of mainstream Marvel or DC comics. Either that, or I have, and I'm just losing my memory. Either way, I really liked it. As for the bad, while I really enjoyed all the character building stuff that I latched onto in this issue, overall, it's kinda boring. Now, I'm not sure if that's what I'm supposed to feel, and if you read the issue, you'll know what I'm talking about, but this felt kinda dry to me. Now, for the second thing that I want to mention, I hesitate to call this a negative, but the end reveal setting up the arc felt like it was supposed to be this major thing, but I didn't really feel all too invested in it. But I doubt that's because of bad writing. And I don't blame Fazikez and Butters, I blame the publisher for the relaunch, because I feel like I would have been more invested in the end of the book if I were reading Captain Marvel beforehand. But, you know, there was a shiny number 1 on here, so I had to pick it up. Ugh. Marvel and DC, I swear to God, you guys keep doing this, and the more you do it, the more it frustrates me. But with that said, the good definitely outweighs the bad here. So, that's my review for Captain Marvel issue number 1. My personal opinion, if you want to get invested in this character, now is the time. This is a really good jumping on point, and I myself am definitely going to pick up issue number 2. But I want to hear from you guys now. Have you read this comic? Do you plan on reading this comic? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you gotta do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie, and as always, until next time, adios nachos.